This is Mike with the SPAC podcast. Today, I'm joined by my friend Brandon Sun. Brandon, why don't you give us a little bit about yourself?
Mike, thank you so much for the opportunity. I'm thrilled to be here. I am a SPAC practitioner, been doing SPACs for about 13 years, 3.5 years here at Cohen Company, and prior to this, a decade at Deutsche Bank. In my career, I've done about 130 SPAC IPOs for premier blue chip sponsors globally. But more importantly, I think where I really differentiate is I've done 140 de-SPACs, which is the most of any banker on earth, done deals in pretty much every sector, every geography. And I do need to preface that everything I say here is just my own personal opinions and does not constitute investment advice.
Absolutely. Well, that is one very impressive history you have with SPACs, and certainly the right person to have on. So, I think as we'll be discussing SPACs today, they've gone through a full evolution cycle, as we know over the last few years. We've seen this from before the SEC rules proposed, adopted, and now we're in something else. Where do you see the real advantage today compared to traditional IPOs or direct listings?
At the end of the day, I think what SPACs offer, right, is it offers certainty. If a company wants to go public, right, the SPAC give them the surest way of ascertaining a Nasdaq or NYSE listing, right? Or Target can control speed, and it can control certain things such as the way the valuation and deal structured. The problem with the IPO market is even though it's the most conventional path to going public, right? Unfortunately, your fate is sometimes in the hands of a few investment banks, right? And you catch a bad market window, you're simply not able to go public. If you look at this window now, it's actually really interesting, right? There's 1,000 companies waiting to go public, right? Publicly filed S1s or confidentially filed S1s, right? They're all effectively stuck, right? The IPO market right now is in a little bit of a disarray, right? So if a company really needs to go public, take control of their own destiny, right? The SPAC is the best way to do it and the quickest way to do it.
And so you mentioned it's an interesting time right now, and I'd love to get your take on this. So, what macro, from a macroeconomic viewpoint, trends, regulatory, investor appetite, retail participation, we hear a lot about, are shaping the SPAC market today?
I think the market, it's at an interesting time, right? There's about 200 SPACs out there, 200 publicly traded vehicles actively looking for targets, right? So a lot of potential vehicles and partners, right? I think on the other side too, like some of these companies are going public, right? And catching immense interest in the public markets post-close, right? Demand not just from institutional investors, right, but from strategics and retail investors, right? Sometimes even government entities, right? So I do think it's a really interesting time. There's a couple of sectors, right, in particular that's getting disrupted, such as the rare earth critical materials space, such as the quantum computing space, right? Such as the SMR nuclear space. So I think in some of those sectors, you're benefiting from this massive public-private arbitrage, right? Where public multiples, right, are so much higher than that of private markets. And there's so much more demand, right, by being public than staying private. So in some of those instances, right, companies almost have to export being public because it is the lowest cost of capital and it's the most access to capital.
So you mentioned the hottest sectors, and you mentioned quantum computing. What do you think makes that sector so hot right now? Particularly if, looking at SPACs. I mean, we know each other working on quantum deals, but in your view, Brandon, like how do you see that kind of going forward, especially with AI and everything else on the quantum and digital assets, everything?
No, it's a unique moment in time, I think, for the quantum computing space, right? People realize like it's a disruptive technology that could change the world one day. Could be 5 years, could be 10 years, could be 20 years, right? But it's a matter of when and not if. And I think what's really, really interesting is all these companies have gone public, and every single one has gone public through a SPAC, and they've done pretty well. If you look at the three peers, right? IonQ, Rigetti, D-Wave, they all trade meaningfully above 10, right? IonQ trades at north of $10 market cap. Rigetti and D-Wade trade north of 5 billion, right? We're working on a couple of deals together, right? Xanadu, right, which is an incredible outcome, right? They raised $275 million common equity pipe at $10, supported by the Canadian government, right? And obviously Terra, which announced 2 days ago. I think showing the world that the door is open, there's investor demand for these stories, right? I think it's pretty empowering. I think every single quantum computing company CEO management team is looking at this as a potential option.
Yeah, and those deals, a few of them you mentioned have cross-border aspects to them. So how do you see, cross-border dynamics evolving in the SPAC space? I mean, are SPACs, still a compelling route for those international companies coming into the United States listing here?
Yeah, no, it's a really good question. I think if you look at kind of the capital markets globally, right? Liquidity and volumes are drying up in a lot of foreign exchanges, right? The ASX in Australia, the TSX in Canada, and I'm from Canada, by the way. A lot of these European exchanges, some of the Asian exchanges, right? Outside of really India and the Middle East, right? Every single exchange out there is struggling. So more than ever, right? Companies globally are trying to list in the US. They're trying to list on either Nasdaq or on NYSE, right? This is the deepest pool of capital. This is where the multiples are highest, right? This is where there's most demand, and this is oftentimes where comps trade. So I think because of that, SPACs have become so powerful. If you have a company that really wants to ascertain confidence in going public, right? The SPAC gives them that kind of certainty because the problem is for the US investment banks, right? Anything with a little bit of hair, right? They toss out, right? They delay. So if a company wants to go public today and it's foreign, the SPAC offers that kind of path.
Yeah, and if you're advising or at least talking if you're helping on the sell side, the target side, what are some of the things that you tell them to kind of be ready for the SPAC deal? Like like, would there be something you would tell them like these are the top three things you need to worry about? Not holding you to three, but just
Yeah, I mean, really the thing I look towards, right, is a deep and laser focus from the target management or CEO or founder on wanting to be public, right? That's by far the most important thing, just because the process of going public, whether it's a SPAC or an IPO, reverse merger or direct listing, right? It's long and arduous and there's obstacles that come up, right? The companies that want to go public because raising capital is number one focus, because they're running out of money, right? Those inevitably sometimes run into trouble because if you run into capital market environment, right, where it's less than ideal, they sometimes make excuses and walk away, right? Whereas the ones, right, whose number one priority is to go public, they'll get it done. And no matter good times or bad, right? They're gonna find the right motivation to close these deals, even if it's suboptimal. That's what I really look for in a company. Other things to really watch out for, right, is really embracing, right, the role of being public, right? After going public, making sure you're generating eyeballs from investors, right? Make sure to capture imagination and getting out in front of media. And three is honestly like just a lot of hard work, right? Pounding the payment, having a lot of investor meetings as possible, right? For the average de-SPAC, we're setting up dozens and dozens of meetings for management teams, right? Even if they don't invest today, throughout the de-SPAC process, they could be a buyer post-close, right? They could follow the story for months and quarters to come and support the company in the future.
yeah. And let's talk about the flip side of that. So the buy side, the sponsors, what do you tell them when they're looking at targets as sort of is it sort of similar, but on the other side, like you need a management team that's hyper focused on this and that can achieve its goals. What are the kind of top things you're telling a SPAC sponsor?
And kind of the flip side, it's really the same actionability, right? Time is my biggest opportunity cost as a banker, right? Time is the biggest opportunity cost for a lot of these SPAC sponsors, right? Because there's only so many hours in a day, and they only have typically 2 years, right? Focusing on a target who wants to be public is by far the most important thing, right? And making sure those dynamics are there. Sometimes it's a disparate shareholder base who really need liquidity. Sometimes because maybe the sector is getting disrupted and the comps are all going public, right? Look, sometimes it's simply the twinkle in the eyes of the founder, right? Making sure the company actually wants to go public. That is vital because if there's no actionability, right, it could be a lot of wasted time and effort. Obviously, look, a couple other things obviously need to check out, right? You need to make sure the deal's correctly valued, right? Correctly structured to succeed, right? We want to make sure the story is compelling enough to resonate so we can go raise the capital.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. That story is like the ultimate, and pegging that right valuation and getting it right is very critical. So, where do you see the rest of the year as far as, you mentioned 200 searching, and hopefully a lot more we hear or sign up, and, de-SPACs close as well. What do you see for the rest of the year?
Um, I think it's going to be a pretty exciting year, honestly. So just this week, we've actually announced two de-SPACs, right? We worked together on Terra Quantum, right? We worked together, sorry, and there's another deal we're advising, US Elemental. It's a big lithium play, right? So we're sell-side advisors to both. It's really exciting. Next week, we're actually going to be announcing two other deals, right? One's a really interesting space and satellite deal. Another one's a defense tech play. In the weeks to come, there's a couple announcements we have as well, right? So I think in some ways, right, I think it's going to be a really, really, really active tape, right? So I think it bodes really well for SPACs.
That's great. I'm excited for a good year. We certainly need it in the capital markets, and seen some recent volatility, but that's good. Well, I don't know if there's any kind of final word you want to give to maybe the SPAC sponsors or targets, but it's been certainly great speaking with you, Brandon.
No, thank you. I really appreciate your time, Michael. Again, I think I just need to stress that this is for information purposes. It only represents my opinions. Um, but I do think SPACs are a powerful capital solution in this market, right? I do think it's a really interesting time where it's gonna create a lot of deal flow and opportunities for companies that want to be public. So, yeah, if anyone has any questions, I'm always happy to be a resource, happy to explore.
Great. Well, I can attest to that you are quite the expert, and quite a great gentleman to help out. So, thanks again, Brandon. This is Mike with the SPAC Podcast.